All right, welcome back to the show. After the static, I'm Arthur Price. I'm here with Mr. John Auber again. John,
Hey, how's it going?
how's it going? Good. I think we got a pretty good show today. I have some interesting topics to talk about. One, it could get a little bit, crazy, but we'll see how it goes. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about was Revelation, just like Revelation in general. Um, because I kind of see like three different types of revelations. There's personal revelation, spiritual revelation, and divine revelation. And there
What's
could be more than
what's the
those three.
difference between? I'm sure you get into this, but I
Yeah.
understand. I understand like personal revelation, and then but what's the difference for you between spiritual and divine revelation?
Yeah, so I think I have my own definition, which is fine, right? I don't think it's kind of it doesn't really go along with probably I don't know, I don't say mainstream, but probably what everyone else thinks of revelation as. But I looked up the definition because I was just kind of curious, like what does that actually mean? So, what a revelation is, according to the dictionary, it's a sudden and often surprising and enlightening discovery or piece of information uh, that has come to light or has been made. So it implies that something previously unknown or hidden has been brought to light, causing a moment of clarity or understanding. Because I was having a conversation about this with my wife because we were talking about some church stuff, and I guess we kind of have different views on what revelation is. So for me, I'll get into the three, and I kind of I want to get your opinion on it too. But so for me, personal. Well, here maybe we'll start with this. Do you believe that people get revelation from God currently?
So it's a more complicated question than I think. I hate to be that guy, but I feel like it's a more complicated question because I don't know. I don't really think God, in the terms that most people think of a God, fully exists, and I don't think that the I don't think God directly interferes with your life through
Yeah,
revelation
sure.
or through anything else. For the extent that there is a God, I don't believe He does that. Now, I do believe that there's a global consciousness. I believe that there's you can reach it through meditation and by other ways that you can connect to, and there are other entities, whether they be family members, friends, completely different species, basically different entities, different people within that realm that will help you or harm you. And I also believe that there's another part to it that I don't fully understand, where the consciousness has its own consciousness. And I think that's what many people
Mm,
refer to, not as God, but as like the Holy Spirit. Like with, at least within the Christian religions, they realize there's a difference there between God and then whatever there is, that there's this consciousness that will talk to them sometimes and teach them things. And I believe within the Christian religions, at least, they usually refer that to that as like the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost, whatever you want to refer to it as, like that. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I don't see it like that. Like I don't see it as a spirit or a ghost. I think it's something I don't fully understand, but I do believe that there
Sure.
is something, or whether it's a combination of all of our
Well,
consciousness, whatever it is, that can give you
yeah.
revelation, that can teach you things and warn you about
So
things, and that can like give you divination and things like that. If that
so
answers your
you're
question.
yeah, so you don't, from what I understand what you're saying, you don't really believe in like Old Testament God like coming down and having a conversation with you face to face and telling you to do something.
I believe there are entities that are powerful enough that we see them as gods that have done that.
Do you think that happens still today?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Because I more see it as
I'm not sure about that.
I more see it as there are. Well, do you believe? Sorry to go this direction with it, because I know this makes me sound kind of crazy. But do you believe in extraterrestrials, like extraterrestrial life, like aliens, basically.
Yeah, I think to believe that there's not. So yes and no. I'm not 100% sure that there's aliens out there that are like far superior technology wise or anything like that. That could be the case. Who knows? But I do believe that there are other intellectual beings out there that are not humans. I mean, just given the vastness of the universe itself, I feel like it's kind of narcissistic to say that we're the only ones around, right?
Hmm. So I
So
think
yeah.
I guess to kind of wrap up my thought with that, I think with that there's revelation in the sense, or like, and then there's also like divination, which is a little bit different. But like, there's revelation in the sense that there's you connecting to that global consciousness that I think most of us don't fully understand, that can warn you of things and tell you about things and can kind of guide you through your life into directions that may make you happier or make you feel more fulfilled. And then I also believe
Mm.
that there are entities, both good and bad, that can manifest themselves in physical. They have physical bodies and they're interdimensional beings that come down and directly communicate and talk with people, and physically interact with people. And I don't think it's as simple as just like, oh, like flying saucers. It's like, no, like I believe that there are entities that
Yeah.
they have like they're more connected to the universe than they know how to travel in ways that we don't. They know how to communicate with us in ways
Mm.
that we don't. I believe that there's other dimensions where they can see us and we can't see them with our physical eyes. And I believe that they can manifest themselves to us, show themselves to us, and if they care to, and talk with us and things like that. And we can interact with them. And they have physical bodies; you could touch them, and things
So
like that. And if
so
they want to,
yeah.
they could be beneficial to you, or they could be evil. They could not help you.
Yeah. Right. Like I believe that there is good, there is evil, right?
Yeah.
Um so going back to the types of revelation, so there's in my opinion there's three types, right? There's personal revelation, there's spiritual revelation, and the divine revelation. And
Yeah.
I think they're very distinct things. And it
I'd
makes
agree.
sense to me logically. Personal revelation. Now, according to some church definitions and stuff, personal revelation is like uh getting information or revelations from God that you get, and then that's what. But I don't think that's how it works for me. I think personal revelation is my own thought process, working through things in my head and coming to realize um, things that I haven't seen before or understand it before. And I don't think there's any kind of divine influence behind that. I think that being a human and having your own mind and thought process can allow you to have your own personal revelations for yourself.
I'd agree. Yeah.
And then there's spiritual revelation. Now, spiritual revelation is a little bit different. And the way that I think spiritual revelation works is depending on like what you read and your environment. So like if you're reading the Bible a lot, or you're let's say you're trying to be more like Jesus Christ, and you're putting those good influences in your life. And this could go in the opposite way too, where like if you're into like Satanism and bad influences, like I think you can have good spiritual revelations, but you could also have bad spiritual revelations. And I think what you read and what you experience is playing a part in that spiritual revelation. You're taking those spiritual teachings and whatever connection you may feel that you have to the divine, and you're using those in, combined with your emotions and your own thought process to create a spiritual revelation. I don't think that you're having a conversation with God or somebody in your head coming up with these revelations. I just think that it's more of a spiritual influence on your thought process, and that's what gives you a spiritual revelation.
So would you say with that to you, spiritual revelation is more what I was talking about with like the global consciousness, like communicating with that part of the universe that knows more than you do? Or do you think it's more,
No, I
do you think it's
I
less
think it's
spiritual than that
more,
and more like just
yeah,
psychological?
I think it's more of influence plus thought process. So like right now, it's like my thought process. I could think about something and I could come up with a revelation in my personal revelation about something just by thinking about it logically or whatever. But
Mm.
then if I include um like a spiritual undertone to what I'm thinking about, which I think is great, but I think that is when you get into the spiritual revelation where it's like you might come up with a different outcome if you're doing that process rather than just doing personal revelation, if that makes sense.
I agree.
And then the third type of revelation for me would be the divine revelation, and that one is where you're actually getting a revelation or having a conversation with a divine entity, whether that's God or an angel or something else. And I don't think that divine revelation is something that exists today. I think people have personal revelation and they have spiritual revelation, but I don't think that
So
we have divine revelation.
so there's a few things there that I'm gonna push back on and disagree with on, and maybe clarify your thought process and my thought process on. So before we
Yeah.
dive into divine revelation for that, because I have a lot of thoughts on that. Let's go back to the spiritual revelation there, because I found it interesting how you talked about how, which I agree with. This is part I thought was interesting. You talked about it's influenced by your upbringing, your culture, like the things that you're putting in, like the information you're putting in. So, like let's say
Right.
like if, whether you're Muslim or you're Hindu or like whatever you are, the revelation that you have is going to come through that um, that type of
Yeah.
I don't know the right word, that type of communication. So like if you're
Yeah.
Christian, you're gonna see it as more Christian. If you're a scientist, you're gonna see it more through science. Like I
Like
think sorry, God.
so I was just going to say and I have a pretty solid argument for that as well.
Hmm.
So go ahead and finish your statement, but do have an argument to support that
Yeah.
theory.
So I agree with that. However, I do think it's a little bit different than what you're fully explaining, and maybe this is just maybe you're not saying this, but I fully agree with all of that. However, I do believe that behind all of that, of like people's interpretations, there is a solid truth of what it actually is. And as somebody that like I would consider myself like if somebody asked me right now like what's your religion, I would just probably call myself an occultist, because that's probably most where I lean towards is not any kind of specific religion, but more just a lot of
Right.
like occult theology. And so with that mindset, I the reason I believe that is I believe that there's still a truth. Like for example, let's say with the just use the global consciousness as an example. I believe there is a global consciousness. This is a fact. It's a truth. You can reach it through drugs, through meditation, through rituals, through whatever other means. Now, your way of communicating with that will change based off of your personality or how you want to go about it. Like if you're more scientific minded and you don't believe in anything spiritual, you don't think of it that way. Like it's not even that you don't believe it, you don't think of it that way. Then you're probably going to reach that through LSD and through doing mushrooms, and you're going to communicate with that and you're going to think there's way more to this universe than what I thought, and there's other dimensions
Mm.
that I can't quite see, and if there's an entity that comes and visits you, you're going to see it as an extraterrestrial coming down at it's like, and it's like that's like how your mind
Well,
processes it. um
yeah.
However, if but the, but whereas like for example, like let's go tie back to what you're talking about the Bible. Whereas like if you're this person, this ancient person that believes in God and all these things like that, and you're seeing these things and you're experiencing things, you're seeing it more as like gods and angels and demons. Whereas those are just words and definitions that we're using, where it's just this, it's still the same thing. And so the way that I say is there's still a background truth of like there is still this entity, we call him different names. There's still this other dimension. We may call it a dimension, or we may call it the spiritual realm, or we may call it whatever we want to call it, based on
Heaven
like
or
our
hell
background,
or whatever.
heaven or hell, or like interdimensions, or like we could use all these
Sure.
different words, but in the end, we're describing the same thing. And same thing with like spiritual revelation. Like it's all tied back to there being one truth, and I feel like that's one thing that I lean a lot more towards is finding that
Yeah.
truth. I don't care what you call it. I don't care like the names that you put behind it. I don't care if you call it good or evil. I feel like that's kind of a by. I don't care about any of that. I want to know how the universe works and how it affects me and how I can affect it. And I feel like that is the truth. I don't feel like, oh well, everybody's right.
So
No, 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 no. Not
yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
right. Religions are wrong. There's certain like there's some sciences wrong.
right.
Like there's things that are just wrong. That's like no, you're wrong. These things exist, but whether how you want to interpret it, what you want to call it, what names you want to use, whether you think it's good or evil, like etc. It's all personal interpretation.
Yeah. So I think where this all came from is we were kind of having a conversation about prayer,
When you say
and
we, do you
I
mean you
know
and your wife?
yeah, me and my wife, and we were talking about so like in the Mormon church and the LDS religion, you have a lot of people who are like, oh, I prayed about this and I got an answer from the Lord that I should do X, Y, and Z, right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, but you didn't have a conversation with him. Like, how do you know that was from a divine entity and not just your own personal revelation through prayer? Because I don't think God or the global consciousness or whatever you want to call it, they don't have um I don't think they have influence over our physical environment as much as maybe people think that they do. Like, because we were talking about the flood in Texas and how all those girls died or whatever. And it was like, you don't think God would have saved those girls? Like, they
I don't think
were
so.
at
No.
but they were at like a Bible Christian camp kind of thing, right? And it's
You
like,
wouldn't care. Why does that matter?
well, I'm just saying, like, that's what I mean. I don't think he's coming down and having a conversation with you and giving you the answer on where your car keys are or,
Yeah.
maybe this problem that you're having, right? And he's not going to do that and then not save people that are,
But
going to die
but
from
I
the
don't
flood.
I don't think he's ever done that. And like there's a difference between
Yeah.
that and like so I see what you're saying now, but I would push it against it in a certain way. So I 100% agree with all of that, but I think you're looking at it the wrong way. I don't think it's so much that's like, oh, because I always thought it was silly, the argument that a lot of people had where it's like, well, if God's really existed, why is he saving people? Like, why would he? Like that doesn't logically doesn't make any sense to me. Like if you are this entity that basically just help create things or help manage things, which is how I see like if there is a God being, like that's what he is. He just helps create things, helps manage things. He uses the laws of the that are already existing in the universe to create and to manage life, and not just us, but
Mm.
everything. And if that's what it is, I'm not controlling that life. I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like it's not. I'm not going in and influencing every little decision that every piece of life makes. It's like no, I'm simply helping life exist and helping it go forward. But once it's gone, like it's not my responsibility to make sure it doesn't have pain, that it has food, it has water. Like, no,
Right.
that's not my responsibility. It's like, no, like I put like, a drop in a petri dish, basically. Now go forth. Do
I,
your thing
I do
at
think
that point.
that he has influence, like I was saying, through the things that you put around yourself. So, and it like the teachings of Jesus Christ are all great, like all good stuff
Mm.
and good influences, right? So if you surround yourself with things that are good when you're praying or meditating or whatever, like those good influences are going to have an impact on your own quote unquote personal or spiritual revelation. Is what I'm getting at. I don't think that anybody is communicating like we're having a conversation right now
Mhm.
with a divine entity.
I disagree. So where I disagree with that is, let's say, see that what's hard for me with this is there's several points I'm trying to make. I try to decide which one I want to make first. So let's stick with the divine. Let's stick with the divine entity. Let's stick with the physical communication with the divine entity for now, because it seems like that's kind of where the conversation is going with a lot of it.
Sure.
So I'll kind of stick my mindset to that. So as far as like a physical, like face to face conversation where you're sitting down and you're talking with a divine entity, I 1,000% think that has always happened and that will always happen. There's no like, and it's simply but it's not. I think you're looking at it wrong. This is not a oh I'm coming down to save you thing. This isn't like oh I'm so righteous that now this entity it deems me worthy to talk with it. That's like no, that's not how I don't see it working that way. I think that there are entities that we see as gods because of their station in the universe. Like they're powerful enough that we literally see them as a god, and they do have physical forms. Now, of course, if something exists in the universe and if it has a physical form, you can meet it. Now, whether it chooses to meet you is another question entirely. Now, a lot of people would say, well, if these things still existed today, why don't why don't more people, like, why don't I meet it? Have you tried? Have you gone out into the desert and starved yourself and fucking prayed every day for 5 years and like done these things that, like, people, we'll just use the Bible as an example because it's like that's where you're pulling from a lot. In the Bible, if you read any of the stories where people have revelation from God, very rarely is it like, oh, they're walking to the store and then all of a sudden God just appears to them. It's usually like, okay, everyone I know
go to the top of this mountain or something.
I just slaughtered like 30,000 people, and I would do, it's something epic is involved. Like it's like they are walking through the desert, they burned a bush, which is basically full of drugs, and they're getting high. There's some huge thing that they're doing that enacts them communicating with this entity. And so it's not,
which
like,
is perfect for my point, because my point is people will pray and they'll 5 minutes later be like, oh, God told me to do this, and I'm like, dude, that's such bullshit.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that, but I'll go back to that. Like that's a whole other, I think, kind of subject in this revelation, because you talked about personal, spiritual, and divine. That falls into more of the spiritual. So we're talking about the divine right now. The divine revelation is the one-on-one communication with a physical being. I believe that happens, but I feel like it's rare, and I believe that it's kind of like, not to trivialize it, but it's like meeting an extraterrestrial, where we talked about these entities coming down and meeting people. Now, does that happen to everyone? No. Can it happen randomly? Yes. Can you do things to encourage it to happen? Like going out where it's been recorded that these things happen a lot, putting yourself in situations like where you could try to meet them. Like, yeah, now, does that guarantee that's going to happen? No, but it ups the chances. And it's the same thing with, if you, let's say those entities may not be what people in the past have considered a god, but I would say these entities that we did consider a god are still just an interdimensional being, is the way that I see if there is a physical god. And if you want to meet him, he's got to want to meet you. And why the fuck would he care to meet you? Now, if he decides at some point that he does, cool. But that doesn't mean you can enact it. Now, as an occultist, like what I was talking before, as an occultist, I 1,000% believe that you can summon entities in physical form and you can meet them. I have gotten to the point where I've summoned entities in spiritual form, and then I stopped. I didn't proceed forward to go forth to the physical because meeting entities in the spiritual was scary enough for me that I was like, you know what? I don't need to see more. I've kind of proven to myself, like, because the point of me doing certain rituals was to verify that there was something, just to basically prove to myself that there were these entities, these other things did exist. And it progressed far enough that I proved that to myself. And I could have, in my opinion, continued to go farther and continued to get more knowledgeable on the subject and summoned them physically. Now, would that have worked out well for me? I don't believe so. And that's why I didn't continue and do it. But if you really want to, you can do it. Now, the problem is, are you going to summon God? No.
Right.
No.
Right.
Like, you're not, who the fuck do you think you are, you little ant? You're not summoning God. Now, if you want to summon, like, a lesser entity, some, like, lesser being, like, that thinks it's, that's trying to fuck around with people.
Yeah.
That wants to do that. Yeah, you can do
Are
that.
you talking more about, like, the Abramelin ritual?
Well, the Abramelin ritual is different. That one you're specifically trying to talk with, like, your guardian angel. But there's other smaller rituals that you can do as long as you use, like, a magical circle where you're trying to communicate with other beings from the global consciousness. And that is what I have done, where you tip into the global
and I could see that where,
beings.
like, that would work, and that, sure, I can.
I mean, I walked you through some of that, and you talked with.
Yeah.
You experienced some of that yourself.
Yeah. But for somebody who claims to have spoken to God face to face and then turns around and says that, well, I'm the only one who can do it, and this is what he told me to do. And
oh no, then they're a liar.
I have a problem with that. And then I also have a problem with people who trivialize it and say, oh, I prayed and God answered my prayers and I got, $500 because I paid my tithing or whatever. It's like that, dude. Like
Yeah, no,
that just doesn't happen. Like
that's
that's
not how
not
it
a
works.
thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
Now,
and I feel like a lot of religions like push that narrative, like, oh, you can talk to God, and you can, if you pay your tithing, then God will take care of you, and like all this other stuff. And I think good things happen to good people for sure,
I
but I
disagree with
don't
that, but
think
yeah.
I don't. Well, bad things can happen too, right? But I don't think God's gonna come down and write me a $500 check if I pay my tithing and make sure that my rent's paid. Like
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen.
So, okay. So first off, I think there's several things that you hit that I kind of want to go into. And by the way, if I remember talking too much, feel free to interrupt me. Um, but I feel like I feel like you hit like 3 or 4 different subjects there that are completely different. So one is we talked about like taxes, like tithing, taxes, tithing, same thing.
Same thing
You
in
talked
my
about
mind.
they're the same thing. You talked about like tithing. Now that is that's bullshit. Saying like, oh, if you pay tithing, you're gonna get a blessing. Like that's just them saying. Like imagine if we worded it differently and said, if you give me money, God will bless you.
Right.
Okay, no, like
Which
no,
is what it is.
that's not.
They
That's
try
not,
to wrap it around sacrifice, like, oh, you're sacrificing this, and that's the sacrifice for the Lord, or
yeah,
whatever.
but they try to
Mm,
wrap it around. Oh, you're not giving the money to me. You're giving the money to the church. Well, the church,
right.
who runs the church? You, like, and they'd be like, oh no, it's God. Oh really? So let's put the money in a bank account and like God to divvy it out. Oh no, he's not gonna do that. You are through revelation. No, no, fuck off. No, this is
Right.
you're trying to steal money. That's all that this is.
Like
So that
I've always believed in tithing as like I mean we can get into tithing later, but
yeah, I feel
basically
like
tithing
tithing's a
for
whole other
me is
subject.
it's not necessarily giving an organized religion money or anything. It's more of like what's your most valuable asset to you. If it's money, then give 10% of that, but give it to something that you believe in, something that's
Uh,
it could be a charity or it could be giving it to someone else. But if that's what you're sacrificing and that's what's most valuable to you, then great. I think it's more of like the act of sacrifice. And so if money is not the most valuable thing to you, like let's say time is 10% of your time to doing something that's
I still
different.
disagree with that because you're still sacrificing it to the church, not actually God.
No, no,
So
no, no, no.
it
You're
literally means
sacrificing
nothing.
it to something that you believe in.
Mhm.
Like like for me, I have an issue paying tithing to an organized religion, but like I don't mind helping my grandma out from time to time or something like that.
Yeah,
Like that I see that as a sacrifice just as like right on par or the same as what tithing is.
yeah. We're tithing. So kind of wrap up the tithing part because I don't want to get lost on
Yeah,
tithing.
yeah. Sorry.
Where tithing makes sense is if you're helping the community. Let's stop wrapping it around like
Yeah.
God.
Sure.
Like let's say we lived, back in the 1800s or something, and we had a small community, we have a small farming community, and there's 50 of us, 50 different families, and we want to start like a tithe where it's like, hey, let's all put in 10% of our money into this bucket. That way, when Elijah's crop fails or my crop fails and the other guys just do okay, like etc. Like he's taken care of for that season, for that winter. Like he's not going to starve to death
Mm.
because we have this like extra money for something goes wrong in the community. We're all helping each other. It's
I look
that's
at
where
it as more
that's
of
where it
like
makes
a
sense.
sacrifice for me. Like, are you willing to sacrifice something that's important to you?
See, I feel
And
like
that's how I look at it.
that's the trick that churches use to get people to give it, but I don't feel like that's really what it is. I feel like that's the lie that they
Mm.
use in order to get people to give money, but really it's like, hey, let's just help each other out. On the good side, on the bad side, you're just giving to a church who's just stealing it. Because if you want to
Right.
sacrifice something to God, you don't need to involve a church in that. And you don't need to give money for that. Now, if
Well,
money
not
is
that's
your
what I was
vice,
saying.
yeah, you could do
That's
that.
what I
But
was saying. Like the most valuable thing to you, or
well, yeah, but
the
then
hardest thing for you to sacrifice.
let's just not call it a tithing. Let's just you do that yourself and don't tell
Yeah.
anybody
Sure.
about it. And you don't
That's
need
what
to
I
give
was
it to
saying.
a
I think
church.
it's equal to that.
Yeah,
That's what I was gonna.
I see it as separate
Anyway,
things. Is my point.
yeah.
But like I'm not against the idea of a tithing if you lived in a small community and you're just more like helping each other out. But that's where I feel like the tithing come in helpful. Every other situation, I believe it's evil. Um, Now, as far as what we were talking about with like spiritual revelation, because you're saying like, oh, like you don't
Yeah.
believe like, oh, like a god is like communicating with them. The way that I look at
Correct.
that is different. It's not, oh, I agree with you on that. God's not communicating with them. in that way, the way that you're talking about. However, I believe that when you talked about personal revelation and you talked about like spiritual revelation, there is a web of knowledge. There is like that. I do believe in like something I don't fully understand. That's why I'm tripping over my words trying to describe it. That's why I keep on using the word global consciousness, because that's the best word I've found to describe it. I believe there is a web of global consciousness that people can connect to, and I believe that there is vast amounts of knowledge within that global consciousness that if you can connect to it through prayer or through meditation or through drugs or whatever it is that you use to connect to it, you can learn things about yourself. You can have revelations. You can basically figure out things about the universe and yourself and what you should do. So if you, for example, reach that through, like, let's say you don't believe any of it, whether you don't believe any of it or don't know about any of it doesn't change the fact that it's still there. So you connect to it. Okay. Let's say this person that you're talking about at church connects to this global consciousness by accident through prayer. So they're praying and they're asking God for this and etc. And then they're like, oh, then God revealed the answer to me and I had personal revelation. They just accidentally stumbled upon the global consciousness through a form of meditation that is prayer. Yeah. And they received a personal revelation from that web of knowledge, that web of deeper understanding. And then they were like, oh, I now understand this about myself or my situation or whatever it is. And then they go, God answered my prayer, because they're stupid.
I think the majority of people, for me, I think I'm very analytical when it comes to things. I think the majority of people have good intentions, and maybe they actually believe that revelation came from God.
I believe they believe it. Yes, yeah.
But for me, it's like, dude, I don't think it did. Like, there's no way.
Well, that's what I'm saying is they believe it came from God, but it didn't. It either came from them. It came from two things. It either came from them just understanding it themselves, like figure out in their brain themselves, or it came from them accidentally connecting to that global consciousness through a form of meditation, which is prayer. And so then they connect.
But I don't think that happens very often either.
And I don't believe that's God telling them.
Yeah. It's just not of a lot of religions would even teach that. I think organized religion.
Every religion that I've ever seen teaches that.
Meditation and connecting to global consciousness and everything.
Yeah, they use different words, but every religion I've ever studied, and I've studied every religion I've been able to find, practices that same thing. They use different words for it, but it's the same thing. So the global consciousness is the Holy Ghost. It's the Holy Spirit. It's the meditation is prayer. Meditation is a ritual is fasting. Which helps you connect to the global consciousness, is, by the way, is fasting. That's one of the easiest ways to connect to the global consciousness, is to fast and then meditate. So if you fast and then pray, which is another form of meditation, then you can connect to the global consciousness. And nearly every religion that I've seen practices that, where they go, okay, fast, first sacrifice things. And the sacrificing of things isn't anything spiritual. The sacrificing of things is basically to make yourself take it more seriously, because the more that you're sacrificing, the more that you yourself are taking it more seriously, and the more that you're putting more energy and thought into it. Then once you've reached that, now you're fasting, which is you're preparing your body for connecting to global consciousness. Your body's going to be processing less. It's going to be running less food. It's going to be easier for it to connect. And then you are then meditating, which they would call praying, and you're doing it for long periods of time. I remember many times when I was growing up, they would say pray all night, like do an all-night prayer where you just pray through the night. Yeah. And it's basically long form meditation. And so you're doing long form meditation, which then too, what do most people say when you pray? Oh, you kneel, aka you get down on the ground like you would in a meditation pose, in a pose that your body can maintain itself even if your spirit leaves your body. So you're getting down in a pose where your body can sustain itself. And then you're meditating. It's just meditation. It's just fasting meditation.
All right.
At least in my opinion. Do you disagree?
No. I believe that that's the case. I just don't think a lot of people take it that seriously. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And then those same people will turn around and say, oh, I prayed and I talked to God. And it's like, dude,
I agree.
That didn't happen.
However, I do believe that as well there are people who, without no, again, doing it these back ways, do have actual relation. I believe they're the exception, and then I do believe there are people who have personal, like physical communications with entities. That in because you're talking about being LDS, like being Mormon within the LDS Church. Have you ever heard people say, "I had my calling election made sure"?
No.
Okay, so that's a very common term within the LDS religion. People say all the
Okay.
time, "I had my calling election made sure." What that means is they physically met an angel or God, and they physically touched them and had a conversation with them. So
Mm.
that's how you say that. And so because it's what that means is, and I can go into explaining why that is. I won't do that now, but like why they use that terminology. But what that means is they physically met them. Now, my I've only known two people in my life who have ever said that they had their calling and election made sure. I've known lots of people who talked about it, like trying to get their calling and election made sure. But I only met two people that actually said they did. That I've known personally. I've seen other people that I don't believe and stuff, but like two people that I've physically known that said they did,
That you believe?
and that I believe.
Mm.
One of them is a guy. It's funny because I don't even remember his name, but he was probably is this old guy, got a fat white beard. He's kind of like he looked like a wizard. I won't lie, he looked like a wizard.
Uh,
And I knew him for years growing up, and like it was kind of like my teenage years. And every time you were around him, he had a different aura to him. Like if he entered the room, you felt that he entered the room. It's
mm.
like, oh, like it was kind of like a hush, and it's not like, oh, and he wasn't well respected in the community or rich or none of that. It was just like he had a presence about him that was holy. Like you like were around him, and he was always nice. He was always peaceful. Like he kind of felt like he could be getting killed, and he would still be like nice to you. Like he was like that kind of guy where he's
Mm.
just super at peace with himself and everything around him. And he gave he gave me a blessing once where he he do stuff that I'd never told anybody, and he talked about them in the blessing. Like there's zero chance that anybody knew any of like there's zero chance
Yeah,
he
yeah.
knew, and there's zero chance other people do. And he talked about those things in his blessing when he was giving it to me, of like giving me instruction on stuff. And I'm like, I to this day have no idea how he would have known any of that other than just revelation, other than just him being connected to this
Yeah.
global
I
consciousness.
mean, I've seen people do that or talk about that too with people who do like tarot card readings or
Yeah.
stuff like that. So like that could be the same
It's the same.
influence.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Again, I feel like it's the same. I feel like we're all connecting to the same part. Like I feel like there's natural laws within the universe that everybody's taking advantage of and using, and we're all calling it different things. And we can reach
Yeah.
it different ways, and the different way that we reach it is how we call it. And he had told me that he had his calling election made sure, and he had met. He wasn't God, but it was an angel, and he physically shook his hand and talked with him, and I believed him. It was like that was the only person I was like, no, I believe. And he wasn't, and he told me like in private, it wasn't like a thing where he was getting up in front of the church talking. It's like no, like it was like a
Right, right.
private conversation with him, and he told about it. Um, and so it's like, so I do believe it still happens. I just believe you either need to be an extraordinary person or just have it be randomly happen. Like, or you could go down the more, I guess, darker side that I went down of trying like rituals and trying things to force it. Um, those are kind of the different avenues of like either just randomly it could happen, like it's just luck. You could become such a spiritually connected, like quote unquote, good person that you can connect to it. And then if you make that your priority, you can connect to it and make that happen. Or you could go about more down the occult road and study and realize like more practical like things you can do to force it to happen through rituals and things like that. I feel like those are kind of the three avenues for it to happen, but I do believe it still happens, both the spiritual
Mm.
and the physical, both the divine and spiritual. Now, do 90% of the people who said they had those experiences lie about it and are just full of crap? Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's kind of where I'm at too. Like I think it still happens, but I think it's very overplayed, I guess, or you know, people just kind of trivialize it too much.
If anybody ever, like,
Yeah.
if you're in a church, in an organized religion, you're in a church, and anybody ever gets up in front of the church and talks about something like that happening, they're lying. Like, if you
Yeah.
have an experience
Well,
like that,
I don't think they're lying. I think that they believe that it actually happened, but I don't think it did.
I believe
Or they're
some are.
lying.
I feel like some are lying, some believe that happened.
I think a lot of people kind of play into it just to kind of fit into their environment, you know, their peers, and they want to fit in, and so they just kind of say this random shit, you know, just to get the buzzwords in to
Well,
fit in the group.
well, I agree, and I think it's anybody when you do have and I don't fully understand this why this is. Maybe you can explain it to me as well. But I feel like when you do have powerful spiritual experiences, you don't talk about it very often. And when you do, it's usually more private with friends. Like, I've talked with you about things that I've experienced,
Yeah.
and I don't share those openly with other people. At some point, maybe I'll talk about it on a podcast, things like that. And I know part
Family
about
and friends, you know, family and friends is usually kind of who I talk to about.
but like and even then, I don't always, like, there's some things I just haven't told anybody because I'm like, no, that's for me. Like, they won't understand. And I think part of it is you don't want people to think you're crazy. And then another part of it, I think, is it feels. I hate this word, but it feels holy. Like, it feels like something where it's like, no, like, I don't want to tell you about this because I feel like you disrespect it. Like, it's just like, and I think the time that I had this, I remember I don't even remember the person I was talking with, but I was talking with somebody, and this is when I was a lot younger, and I had a really powerful, like, experience, like a you know, supernatural, let's say, type of experience. And I started telling this person about it, and I was like excited to tell somebody about this. I'm like, can you believe this happened? And I told them about it, and they go, huh, that's crazy. Anyway, and then they just started talking about, like, dinner or lunch or, like, a movie. Like, they just start, like, going off about something else. And ever since then, I don't frivolously tell anybody because it was such, like, it was a type of experience where it's like, if somebody is telling, like, it's like, oh, so you're just assuming that I'm lying then? Because there's no other reason that, like, if this is a life-changing experience of being like, no, like, you know, like, entities, like, you know, extraterrestrial entities exist, kind of thing. And it's and I tell you this story, and your reaction is just to go, huh. Anyway, it's like, it makes me mad.
Story about that. So I was actually at church one time, and we were in they call it elders quorum in the LDS church for those people who aren't Mormons, but it's just where all the priesthood holders of the church are gathered together for a little class or whatever. And there was one guy in there, and his dad had just died not too long ago, and he had this, like, crazy spiritual experience where I can't remember all of it, but basically what happened was he was communicating with his dad or something, and he was awake. He said he was awake, wasn't a dream or anything. And he started seeing, like, so I think what happened is they had, like, talked before, like, hey, like, let me know if there's something on the other side, try to communicate, whatever. And what ended up happening is he was, like, sitting in his room, I guess, and all of a sudden he started seeing, like, all these like, numbers and stuff getting written on the wall, and even, like, on his arm he was, like, seeing the numbers, like, getting, like, on his skin, and he was, like, writing these numbers down and stuff. And then after the experience, he was looking up those numbers, and it turns out, like, those were the birthdays, death dates, marriage dates of people in his family that he had never even met or heard of. And he had brought this experience up at the church, and immediately after he was done, it was like, okay, well, anyone else have any comments or questions? And it was like, what? Like, this dude had just, like, said this crazy spiritual thing, and we're not going to talk about this?
Yeah, and
like, it was crazy.
That's my exact point. Is
you
see, that makes me so, like, that's my exact point, and why I don't frivolously share those experiences anymore is because of that. Because, so let's say, like, that's a prime example. So that situation, somebody shares that experience. If I believe them, that's the thing, though. It's like, if I actually care, like, if I'm actually religious, let's start there. Let's step even back before believing them. If I'm actually religious, which I say to be because I'm in a church, if I actually believe in an afterlife and all of this, which I say I do because I'm in this church that says we believe in this, and then there's a guy who has this experience where he has this basically communication from his dead father, who communicates with him like this, and he shares that experience. If I like the only situation in which I would not be like, hey, let's talk about this and go into a deep conversation about this, and I want to know more details, and let's focus on this, is if I don't believe him. And
yeah, it was so eerie to the point to where I thought that maybe I was the only one who heard it. Like it was that like brushed aside by everyone in the room that I was sitting there feeling like, am I the only one who heard that just now? Like, what is happening?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Crazy.
because they don't really care. Like the people at that church,
Yeah.
they don't really care. They're not actually religious. They're just going to church because people tell them to go to church. And they're not even listening. Like when people are telling us
Yeah.
like that, they're not even listening. They don't care. And
It
like,
seriously made me feel
it's
like I was the
ridiculous.
only one who heard it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like that's all I'd want to talk about in this situation. It's like, oh,
Right.
let's dive into this. Let's talk about this. And that makes me so mad. Like,
Yeah.
that makes me so mad.
Anyway, but we kind of got off topic from Revelation and stuff,
No,
but I think we're kind of
I think we're still
mostly
on
on the
topic.
same page on how that works.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we're still on the same topic with that.
But if anybody has any different opinions, like feel free to leave it in the chat. Like I'd love to, if you have some reference material, like I'd love to read more about it. So
Yeah,
post it.
let us know your opinions. If you have any stories that you do want to share that you feel comfortable sharing, we won't brush them off.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
apparently
yeah.
lots of people do. That's interesting.
So what did you want to talk about?
So I wanted to go over. Sorry, I'm still just thinking about that story. I'm just thinking about different things. So,
It's such a crazy story.
well, I'm more it's just the connection of people brushing it off just makes me so mad. It's hard to like.
Yeah,
change
it was so weird when he had finished. It was seriously like, okay, anybody else have any other comments? And I was just like, wait, am I the only one who heard that? And then after the class had ended, the session, like everyone just kind of got up and went their own separate way. Like nobody talked to the guy. And I was like, do I go up there and say something to him? But at the same time, I'm like, am I the only one who heard that? Like, what is? I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So the sticking.
I wish I would have talked to him more. I wish I would have went up to talk to him.
Yeah. I did have another subject I want to talk about. Before going to that, though, there's a few other things within like Revelation. Sorry if everyone's tired of hearing about this, but like there's a few other topics within Revelation that actually made me think of that I want to talk to you about. That's more on the occult side and where you think these things fall. Because we're talking about basically, there's three forms of revelation. And then I think about it a different way of there also being like the school of divination. Because you think about like magic and the different magic schools, like there's alchemy and there's different things. One of the most prominent, I would say probably the most prominent school of magic that people usually think of when they think magic is divination. It's basically of telling the future. And it's basically like tarot cards,
Right.
like another, which for me is a lot more prevalent. Which
And
is
I've had very
reading.
little experience with tarot cards myself, and I've tried to do some tarot card reading. Every time I've done a tarot card reading, 100% on point,
Yeah,
which has been really weird.
yeah, which is funny because I remember too. So
I had
I
such
told
doubts.
you, I told you to do it, and you're like, I don't think it's gonna work. I'm like, it'll work. You're like, I don't think it will. I'm like, we'll see. And I was telling you, and then like you went and did it, and you're like, what the fuck? I'm like, I told you.
Yeah, I meditated for a couple minutes beforehand, and then went through like the process, and then every time it worked, I was like, wow.
The meditating beforehand is very important. The taking it seriously is very important. Like if you and if you just go into if you go to some random like charlatan shop and it's gonna be
right. Or
and
like I went to the Renaissance Fair a couple of years ago, and I had somebody do a tarot card reading for me. And this is probably where it that was my first experience with tarot card readings, was going to a Renaissance Fair and paying somebody to like do tarot cards for me. And it was so like it was so chaotic there. Like there's a lot of people walking around, like hard to hear. And then there was no seriousness to it. It was very like campy,
campy. The person was probably in a costume. Yeah.
Yeah, they were in a costume. Yeah. And so like it didn't work, right? They tried like 2 or 3 times, and they were like, oh, are you having financial trouble? And I'm like, no. Like, do you have issues with your father? I'm like, not really. Like, I kind of, I
I mean,
forgive all that stuff.
do you
Like,
mean
I
am
don't
I a
have
human
any.
male? Yes, every human
Yeah,
male
I
has
was like, but
issues with
no,
his
like,
father.
and at that point, like, even my marriage, like, everything was going really well for me. So I didn't have any, and I think they were kind of just fishing for
Yeah,
something.
they
And then
were.
it was, and then at the end, it was like, well, some people aren't open to it, and that's why and that's what she was saying was, oh,
Yeah,
well, you must not be feeling open to it. And I was like, I'm open, like, let's go,
yeah.
like,
No,
I want, and
you just don't know what the
it
fuck you're
just
doing,
didn't
bitch.
work.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it just didn't work, and I think that's why it's like all those factors, and that's why I had that like preconceived notion of like, that's kind of bullshit. But
yeah. Well,
I don't know.
and that's why I don't. I get, which is funny. I say this because I'm talking about it in a podcast that we're gonna post on the internet for everyone to watch. But I don't talk about like tarot. I don't talk about divination. I don't talk about magic, like any of the, or like even occultism, like all that in like with just random people in day to day life, because when you think about that, you instantly think of just crazy people,
Mm.
stupid people, because it's kind of like no, I don't want to make it political. I was going to make a political comparison. It's when you have a group of people that, like they have a bad name for them. And then if you associate yourself with that, it's like, those people just gave us a bad name. Vegans
Mm.
is a good example. Like if you're vegan,
Vegan.
if I was vegan, I'm not vegan, but if
Sure.
I was vegan, I wouldn't want to tell people I was vegan because of how many fucking
There's
idiot
a
assholes
stereotype along
are
with it too,
vegans.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and so it's like I hate vegans. Even if I was vegan, I'd hate vegans, and not because of the whole thing of being vegan makes perfect sense. Like it's like I don't have anything against being vegan, but there's so many people that are vegan that are just fucking idiots and assholes that it just gives it a bad name. And it's the same thing with
Mm.
like occultism and with magic and with tarot. There's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so many just bimbo idiot assholes that you don't
Well,
want to be
and
associated
TV
with it.
shows and movies and
TV
media, I
shows,
think, have a
yeah,
lot to
they
play
go
into
like,
that
oh,
as
like
well,
Harry,
because they
Harry
go
Potter.
like
No,
way over the top with it, and then it gives everybody a bad, preconception of
yeah,
what it actually is.
they're like,
Yeah.
oh, so you think you can cast fireballs? Like, fuck,
Or
no.
it's like, oh, you do tarot cards, you must believe in Satan, or you
Yeah,
must be a Satan worshiper, and it's like, all right, dude, like that's not the same.
yeah, um,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, but I won't get too distracted at that. But like, so it's funny because I don't talk about any of this or that. But one of the big things with me is like tarot cards, which I don't do as much because I'll do it every now and again. But I feel like doing it too much can become obsessive about trying to control the future or understand the future, which I feel like you should live in the moment and then do tarot every now and again if you want a greater understanding of your path forward of things to take.
Yeah.
Now the place that's really affected me is dreams. um oh, your camera just cut out,
Uh shoot.
so it looks like his camera died, but we're back. We let it recharge for a minute. You ordered a bigger battery, so next time if
Yeah.
we
I got
end up
a
rambling, it's
dummy battery, so should have unlimited power next time.
yeah. But we were talking about when we left off. We were talking about revelations and dreams, and we kind of left off where I just wanted to ask you about dreams, like what your thoughts are with kind of revelation and divination and dreams, because I
Mm.
personally feel like that's the place I have most received revelation and most received like, I guess revelation may not even be the right word. The That's the place I've most received insight into the future, like
Oh,
into
really?
things that are going to happen, is through dreams. I've even had times where like I'll dream um, a scenario, like something that's going to happen, and then I recognize it in real life when it's coming up, and I'm
Oh,
like, oh,
really?
it's like I see the scenario, like I look around, I'm like, oh, I'm in the place at the exact time, like I recognize the lighting, I'm like, oh,
Mm.
that's about to happen, and then it happens, and I kind of go to euphoric state where I just kind of like allow myself to go through how it happened in my dream, and everything kind of just plays out, like everyone just says what they said in the dream, and everything kind of just plays out how it played out in my dream. Um,
For
and
me,
majority of the
yeah.
time it's not anything important like when that does
Right.
happen, but it's like a thing that's just I find interesting, and a few times it has been important where it warns me about like future things, and I'm like, oh, and so I can better deal with them when they do happen, because it's like, oh, I knew this was going to happen.
For me, I don't have anything like that with my dreams. For me, all of my dreams are like sometimes they're just completely random and don't make any sense. But when I do have one that makes sense to me, it's more of like I was really thinking about this thing, or it's something that I'm going through, and then I'm using my dream to like go through that experience or help me figure out like try to make sense of what I was
Process
thinking,
it.
process. So I've never had anything where it's like seeing into the future, but I all the time I go through dreams that are dealing with my current situation and helping me process or trying to help me process what that is.
I feel like
Dude,
that's probably the primary use of dreams is that.
right. One of the things that I would like to try to get more into is lucid dreaming. And there have been
I love that.
times, yeah, there have been times when I have dreamed. And I remember one time in particular where I was fully aware that I was in a dream and I told myself that I was dreaming and that I could do whatever I wanted to do. But for some reason, I couldn't command my dream to do what I wanted, even though I was mentally aware that this was a dream. And I feel like I was so close to lucid
That
dreaming.
reminds me. That makes me think of like Neo when he's on the roof, where it's like he now knows that he's in the Matrix.
Oh yeah,
So he
sure.
has that knowledge, but he can't control it yet. He still
Mm,
falls when he goes to jump to the other roof.
kind of, yeah.
It's like,
That's what it felt like. And then the dream continued, and then I woke up and I was like, damn it! Like I knew I was in a dream. Like why didn't I do this? Why couldn't I do that? And I was just like, I've been close.
oh, one thing that I want to get better at is retaining my dreams, like remembering them and like writing them down. Like I do have a dream journal that I use
Yeah,
to write in.
I have a dream journal as well, but I haven't been keeping it updated.
I haven't either. I should start that up again though. It's just annoying because there's so many days where you wake up and you're like you just want to get up and go forward with your day, and especially when you had like a silly dream, you don't want to stop and just write down like, oh, this nonsensical thing happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, but that is what helps you create the pattern where you can start to remember the important dreams. So I almost feel like I kind of want to have like two dream journals if I did have it. Like I would just like one that's like, okay, either way I'm gonna write it down. But this is journals gonna be the one that I write down, like the dreams
Yeah.
that I just feel like are nonsensical. And maybe they're, going back and reading it, I'll find that it did have meaning, but so it'll still be written down. But there's certain dreams that like are impactful. Like you wake up and you're like, that was impactful in some way, and you feel it and you know right away. And then so it's like I feel like I should have two, where it's like one of them is
Mm.
that, where the ones I know they're impactful, and then the other one can contain all the stuff that I think is silly, and I can still have it and read back to to go back and be like, oh no, this really did mean something, or just to be like, no, this was just random
That
thoughts
we
your
should
brain
make
was
that
throwing together.
a segment for the show called Dream Journal.
Dream
And
journal.
because we're trying to do one show a week, and that would be interesting to keep a dream journal going for a week and see, if there's a dream you want to share or just thoughts
Well,
about how that went for the week. Like we could just have a dream journal segment. So if you guys are interested in hearing about that or seeing how that works, like let us know. We can start doing that.
Well, one thing I did want to do is I kind of wanted to start a routine of giving us a challenge for the following week. Like, what I mean by that is like meditate every day this
Mm.
week, and then we can talk about it. Like, if there's
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
that came from that, or if it was nothing, or do a certain ritual. Like, remember there was that one ritual that was just that starter. I forget the name of it. Where's the one where it's like to help you fall asleep? Like, we
Yeah,
could do
yeah.
that ritual every
That one
night,
actually
or
worked really well when
it
I was
works.
doing it.
It works.
It worked so well.
It works really well.
Yeah.
So we could do that one and be like, did we sleep better? Or we could do like the dream journal one, and then like basically just do something for that week and then report back on it. And then we could decide if we want to continue it that or not. And then we can add another one. And that will be way it'll be kind of like a way of, enhancing ourselves and bettering ourselves, but also having something that we can report back on and talk about.
We should do
Um,
the sleep one.
so do you want to do the sleep journal, or because I kind of want to do too many at one time. I do one at a time. Do you want to do the sleep ritual or the sleep
Yeah,
journal?
let's do the sleep ritual. See how that goes.
Okay. And next time, I don't have the book. Next time, when we do it and we talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it, in the next episode, I'll bring the book that I have. I got the ritual from, and I'll show it to you guys, and I'll read off what it explains, and so we can explain to you like what we're doing, and we'll talk about that next time. Um, I just don't want to add too much to this one because
Yeah.
like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
in.
we're already in.
But let's do that for next time, and we'll just do that starting tonight, and we'll do that every night until our next recording, which we're recording every Friday, and we're trying to post every Tuesday. Is kind of our current goal.
Yeah,
Um,
and John had some other stuff to go over, but I think we're going to save that for the next episode, right?
yeah. So, well, before we get to that, did you want to talk about that terrible movie that we watched?
Oh, yeah. Guess it's time for our movie segment.
Yeah, so we know, like, I know it doesn't match like the kind of feel of a lot of the podcasts that we're trying to do, but I feel like a lot of the reason for this podcast is to kind of give us excuses to do the things that we put off and don't do. And one of those things is just like watching like a movie together. So we've been trying to like watch
Yeah,
a movie
watching
together every
movies.
week and talk about it. And so I know it doesn't fully match the rest of the feel of the episodes, but we kind of want to have like a movie segment probably at the end of each episode where we just talk about whatever movie we watched that week. And we'll try to stick to more like most of the time to more like a cool or serious like movies. That was not this time. This like next time I kind of want to do like Wicker Man or something because he hasn't seen the old Wicker Man. But this time we watched a movie that was god awful, and I will have to say, I will fully blame Arthur on this because he chose the movie, and I told him.
But how far?
Just from the name, you
Yeah.
told me the name, and just from the name, I was like, this movie's gonna be awful. I had the image in my head of the movie it was, and it was exactly that.
How fire was that song in the beginning, though?
Okay, the beginning of this, the song at the beginning,
So
but like,
good.
and the whirlwind Arab was
Yeah,
like,
the
fat whirlwind
Arab tornado or whatever, Tasmanian Arab or whatever we call it. That guy was pretty sweet.
What was the movie called?
Weekend in Taipei.
Weekend.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pull it up so I could get this guy's name right. So we watched Weekend in Taipei,
Which I have to give
you
it a
go
solid.
first. You go.
Yeah,
you go
so let's do ratings wise.
Yes. 1
It's
to 10,
low.
going to 0 to 10.
Yeah,
0
like
to 10.
1 to 10. Yeah, like 0 to 10. Sure, I guess 0 could be the lowest, but I mean, I'm sure there's worse movies out there, so I'm not going to give it a 0.
Yeah. It wasn't a 0.
I think the knife wielding Arab, and some of the action scenes were decent. So because of that and the cool song at the beginning, I'm going to give it 2. I feel like that's fair. And the only reason I'm giving it a 2 and not a 1.5 is because of the writer.
Okay. Yes. So we'll get into that. But yes, 2. I think 2 is fair. So it's called Weekend in Taipei. Came out in 2024. And it's the most generic action movie you could ever think of. Like, think of like a generic, like, crappy action movie. That's what this was. However,
it was so bad that at the start of the movie, John thought they were speaking in another language, but it was English.
Yeah, because like when you watch a foreign movie,
it had like the lip sync issues.
Yeah, like the lip sync, you're like, oh, and the voice acting. You know how sometimes you watch something, it's like, oh, well, that voice doesn't quite match this actor. It's like this like monotone voice, and you're like, oh, they just have voice acting, and like well, maybe we'll just turn off we'll check the audio settings, see if we can have it play in the actual original language, and we just read subtitles. That wasn't the case. That's just how bad the acting was.
Yeah.
Is that we thought it was like a voiceover because that's how bad they were at acting. And the bad guy, so the basically the premise of this movie is you had a super generic, big, tough white guy in America that breaks the rules. He's a cop, breaks the rules, and goes to Taipei and to hunt down this drug dealer. And the problem, so one of the big problems with this is the bad guy was the good guy. So they had the bad guy, and the only bad thing he did throughout the whole movie was deal drugs. Like, he was a drug dealer, don't get me wrong.
Well, he threatened to cut that kid's legs off too, but we can get into that.
It. I would have cut that kid's legs off too.
I would agree.
When I say kid, by the way, he was like 15, and so it's like, okay, it's not a kid. And he knew what he was doing. He deserved that crap. And
he was a drug dealer, which that's not great, right? But he's not like he was going out murdering a bunch of people. I didn't see him one time like go out and murder. Anyway. Well, he did that one guy in their house. Remember, like the wife.
He shot one guy.
Because the wife really set him off. But instead of hitting his wife, he killed that guy. So I was like, dude, that's a win.
Yeah, and so he was a super loving husband, super caring, loving husband,
and stepdad.
That was a complete bit, and stepdad to this woman that was a complete bitch to him.
Oh yeah,
he was a super kind, nice stepdad. Never touched either one of them. Wasn't verbally abusive to either one. He was super loving,
dude. And caring. What was that comment he said to the kid? He's like, "Hey man, I'm really trying here." Like,
yeah. So he invites the kid to go golfing with him. It's like this stepkid. By the way, the stepkid's grown up with him his entire life. He raised this
Yes,
kid
from
the
a
time that the
baby.
kid was from a baby, from the time
Yeah.
that he was born up until now. So like them having some kind of conflict made zero sense as well, because it wasn't even like his stepdad. Like, yeah, he was his biological dad, but he raised him. He paid
Right.
for him. He nurtured him his entire life. That's his dad. And like the kid is being a complete jerk to
Just a
him for
complete
no
dick.
reason.
Yeah.
And just complete dick. And the dad like invites him to go golf. He's like, "Hey, this weekend, do you want to like go golfing with me?" Because he was trying to be nice to him, and the kid just completely blows him off as a jerk to him. And so the dad stops him, and not in a mean way. He's like, "Hey, like turn around. I'm trying really hard here. Like, what else could I do? Like, best communicator ever.
Yeah,
Like, this
yeah,
is
yeah.
guy's like fucking father of the year.
Yeah.
And
100%.
then yes,
Dude, and so then the kid's a total dick to him. And the reason the kid doesn't like him is because the kid is an environmentalist, and the guy, part of his business is, besides drugs, I guess, is dealing with like marine life, and one of them is they're killing dolphins or something. And the kid's upset
well, no, it's
about
not even that.
that.
So it's like it's fishing.
Or-
So basically, he
No,
has
I thought
fishing
it was
boats.
dolphins. Yeah.
Well, no. So what it is, he has fishing boats, but then dolphins get stuck. In the
Yeah,
nets,
they get stuck in the
and
nets.
they kill the.
So this
and
kid
they
was
kill the
pissed
dolphins with
because
that.
he's not doing anything to help these dolphins. So instead of the kid like going to this guy who's been a father figure to him his entire life, super nice to the kid, instead of going up to him and being like, "Hey, look, I have an issue that one of your businesses is killing some dolphins." And in the movie, so basically the kid betrays this guy and gives his like drug list or whatever to the American agent. So instead of just going up and talking to him and being like, "Is this something that we can resolve?" This kid destroys his entire life because he wants to save like 2 dolphins. And the bad guy was like, "This is because of dolphins." He's like, "Dude, that's 2% of my income. That's nothing to me." And so like if this kid would have just talked to him, I'm sure that guy would have been like, "Oh, well, I'll see what I can do to get that fixed." Like he seemed
with how
super
hard-
reasonable.
With how hard the dad too was trying to like get along with this kid, if this kid would have just talked to him and told him like, "Hey, I don't like the dolphin thing," where it is only 2% of his income, he would have like, I have zero doubt he would have just
Yeah.
been like, "Oh yeah, I could stop.
Like, that's your
I could
hang
sell
up?
my fishing
Yeah.
boats." Like,
Right.
like all right, like yeah,
And then
that's not.
if this kid would have just been raised and took this guy as a father, when this guy moves on or retires or dies, like he inherits this empire, save as many dolphins as you want. Like,
Yeah, the guy's like a billionaire. Like
Play
so
the
they
long
set up that
game.
the guy's a multi-billionaire. And so if the kid really was interested, in saving dolphins, inherit this empire, this multi-billion-dollar empire, go straight with it, stop selling drugs, just go straight with it, and save all the dolphins you want. You could save
Right.
the whole fucking ocean of dolphins.
yeah,
Like,
the
holy shit.
whole thing was just
So
garbage.
then throughout the movie, so that's not what that alone wasn't made the movie terrible. The movie was just
no,
bad.
I mean bad
writing,
acting and everything. Yeah.
And the script, they constantly got things wrong. Like they kept on saying, like the beginning of the movie, they said that it was been 15 years since like the mom like left the other dad, or like the other dad died. But then later on they say 13 years multiple times. Like it's like all over the place. Like it's inconsistent.
Well, no, they said that the dad had left, the American dad had left the mom 13 years ago, which is when the kid was born, because the American dad didn't know that he had a kid. But then the stepdad was like, "I've been taking care of you and your mom for 15 years." And so it's like, well, I didn't understand. I was like, well, how old is the damn kid? The kid looked like he was 9, 10, maybe 12. I
Yeah,
don't know.
but then they kept on saying that he's like 15.
Yeah.
So it's like it was all over the place. But then so we paused the movie halfway through because we're like, "Okay, who wrote this? Like this has to be this is the thing that I wanted to really talk about." Because the guy that wrote it, his name is Luc Besson. And he's a writer, producer, director. And I went and I was like, let me look at this guy's credits. He's like this French writer. This guy wrote some of the best movies ever made. He wrote some of the movies that like I grew up on. So he wrote The Fifth Element. He also wrote Leon the Professional.
Crazy.
And so this guy, he also did like Dogman, which like isn't amazing. Taken, which isn't amazing. Like some other ones where it's like,
but I mean,
aren't
Taken is
amazing,
still,
but they're
it's not amazing, but it's a blockbuster AAA. Like,
But yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's probably he did The Transporter, like he did lots of these. But it's like, so I could see where he does like generic like action films sometimes as well. But this guy wrote Leon the Professional, which in my opinion is like amazing, like
it's a
one
great
of the
movie.
greatest movies, like top 10 movies, as well as The Fifth Element, which is like top 5 movies for me. I love The Fifth
Yeah.
Element. And then he wrote this piece of crap. And it made me feel, strange as this sound, it made me feel so much better. Because like looking back at the stuff, like I'm trying to get into like making YouTube videos and creating this podcast. Like I looked back at like our previous podcast episode, which is terrible. Don't watch episode 1. It's really bad. Like it's like, in my opinion, I didn't like
It's
it.
not that
And
bad.
so it's like, I thought it was terrible. But like, but my point is like, if you just keep making stuff, just keep writing, continue to try to get better, and you may make a Fifth Element. Like you could make actual just
Mhm.
terrible content, and then if you just listen to the muse, you could make Leon the Professional. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
continue to pump out content, continue to try. You know, obviously don't make it slop content. Like try your best and try to improve it and make it better every time. But don't stop making content just because something that you make is bad. That's kind of the lesson that I took away from this, because
Sure.
this guy made one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Then on the flip end, he made some of the best movies that like shaped my childhood, like growing up. And so it's like, okay, if this guy would have just made like a few terrible movies that would have been like, I'm bad at this and stopped, I never would have gotten The Fifth Element or Leon the Professional.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the takeaway that I got from it, then kind of the reason I wanted to talk about the movie, even though it was terrible, this week on the podcast was that it's like remember Luke Besson. Like anytime that you're
Mhm.
feeling bad about yourself, just remember Luke Besson. Just keep on making stuff. If it's terrible, it's terrible. And hopefully one day the muse will touch you and you'll make The Fifth Element or The Other Professional.
Yeah. And if you have nothing else to do and you want to watch a horrible movie and have a good laugh, go watch Weekend in Taipei.
Yeah, there you go. That's true.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of the episode. So we appreciate you guys staying this long. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to be talking about whatever John had in store for us. And then also we'll be going over the sleep rituals stuff as well. So it should be a pretty fun episode. So see you guys then. Have a great day. See you
Yeah,
guys.
see you next week.